Welcome back, everybody, to Disc Media, a startup story, the podcast where we take you behind the scenes of starting a business from the ground up. And, for a lot of business owners, failure is one of those things that sometimes happens, not often due to a lack of talent, but often comes from our belief systems, right? Our belief systems about money, about success, and what we actually think might be possible. And those beliefs were never necessarily chosen. They were rather inherited from us. There are things that we learn from the people we grew up with, our family, our experiences, the events and things that kind of shaped us. And today we have somebody who has built a career about helping people rewrite that code around belief, around being a business leader and being an entrepreneur. He's a speaker, Hall of Famer, best-selling author of 15 books, translated into more than 25 languages globally. He's a leader on prosperity and success. And what makes his perspective different is that it's not theory, it's lived practice. It's coming from a jail cell as a teenager to becoming a multimillion-dollar entrepreneur. He spent decades helping people challenge their conditional beliefs around prosperity and has rebuilt things from the inside out. So joining us today is Mr. Randy Gage. Randy, how are you?
Hey, Ben, I'm doing great. Thanks for bringing me in.
No, thank you. Thank you. I love the background. I love the experience. But one of the things I always like to try and do before we get into the heavy stuff is maybe get a little bit of an idea of your background, the things that brought you to what you're doing today.
I'm a writer, I guess, at my core. I'm happiest when I'm hunched over my MacBook in my lonely writer's garret, punching the keys. But I'm a writer as an entrepreneur. That's what I live and breathe and have my being in is entrepreneurial ventures. So books, by the way, book number 16 has come out today. That one right there, Wealth Without Apology, just released. So I'm real happy. And that'll be a bestseller. We've got enough pre-sales already done. So I can say 16 bestsellers now. I'm really excited about that. And that book is kind of similar to my whole view of the world, which is I want to make the world more prosperous. I think we do that by making people more prosperous. And I just skew toward the entrepreneurial side of things. I think, of course, an employee can become wealthy. If you're the new guy who just got the job as president of Apple, that's a pretty good paycheck, right? We could say he could get wealthy that way. But for most people, I think entrepreneurialism or entrepreneurship is a quicker, more likely path to success and prosperity.
So one of the things I talked about in the intro was the idea around beliefs. And we sometimes get programmed to have certain expectations about things. And one of the things you talk about is being programmed to fail. What do you mean by that? Where does that come from?
Wow. I mean, this is where the real work is done as an entrepreneur. The belief, the self-identity, the internal voice you speak to yourself, the self-identity you put out to the world. We've got entrepreneurs who say, yes, I'm worth $1 million a year. And then they're selling consulting hour consultations for $50 an hour. Well, sorry, that dog don't hunt. You can't say your value is $1 million and expect the world to give you that $1 million a year if you're charging $50 for an hour of your time. That's an internal messaging, right? That's a belief system. And I'm kind of fascinated. I've done really well. I've produced more than $23 billion worth of revenue for myself, my clients, and my proteges, right? So I'm pretty good at this business game, this entrepreneurship thing, marketing, copywriting, all the forms of that. Yet in my entrepreneurial coaching program, 70% of the work I'm doing, it's about that mental side that you're just talking about.
One of the things I remember learning a while back, and I thought this was, I actually use this a lot in classes when I teach, but this idea that beliefs are really what drive results, right? And the way that it was positioned to me years ago was that back in the day, GM would be making cars, and as they came off the assembly line, they either went to major repairs or minor repairs, right? And so the idea being that the solution to fixing the problem was to just kind of sort them out, right?
Right. That was, in other words, that was the expectation that at the end of that conveyor line, this was not a ready to buy car. It was a car that needs more work. And that's at the end of the production line.
Right, right. And then often what people will do is they say, well, we need to create some new processes, some new rules, some new routines, and then things will get better for a little bit, but ultimately we settle back into the same results. And primarily because what we attack is the symptom, not necessarily the root cause of the problem. The root cause is the belief.
Right.
And that if we really want different outcomes, different results, then we've got to focus on the beliefs.
And the premises, just because if we go with your analogy of the automotive conveyor, belt to the plant, the assembly line, the natural analogy would come up would be Elon Musk and Tesla. And not only does that Tesla get to the end of the line ready to be sold, but it literally drives itself out to the parking lot where the truck is waiting, right? Why? Because Elon questions premises about assembly, about manufacturing. Like this story, he tells the story of the battery, and there was some fiberglass thing and so they were having this big problem with the assembly line of how this was like a bottleneck to put this assembly, this fiberglass between the battery and the floor of the car, something like that. And he said, why do we need that? And they're like, well, because of this. And then the one department said, well, it's because that department wants it. And Department A said, no, it's because B department wanted it. And then it turns out that the battery was just going on a car, the bottom of the car, or the carriage, I think. And they didn't need the fiberglass at all. It was just, but when you question, because of course he always goes to first principles and questions. So I think both aspects of that are really important for entrepreneurs. One, are we questioning the premise? Are we really governed by first principles? Or in Elon's case, he would always ask the question, is there anything in physics that prevents us from doing this? And then the side you first brought up, which is the mental expectation. The idea that you would expect, well, of course, when a car gets to the end of a conveyor belt, it should be ready to go. It shouldn't have to be, well, does this need minor repairs or major repairs? But of course, that was the thinking at the time back in the day at GM.
So thinking about these beliefs and belief systems that people build, and you venture into topics around entrepreneurism, around money. And often as entrepreneurs, we love our own ideas. Sometimes we don't like to call our baby ugly, but there are times when we have to, right? So what are some of the more risky or dangerous beliefs that entrepreneurs will sometimes develop around money that maybe people don't even realize they have or that they're doing?
There's maybe 3, might even be 4 chapters in this new book, Wealth Without Apology, into the science of that, into the science of memetics, or the science of memes. You hear the word meme today and people say, oh, that's like a slide I see on Instagram. No, that's not really what meme means. Meme that word was actually created by Dr. Richard Dawkins in his book, Selfish Gene. And he used it to denote the case of how we do things from external programming as opposed to genetic evolution. Genes are genetic evolution. You got these genes, they say you're going to have blonde hair, blue eyes, whatever. And then he noticed that people today, we are doing things that's against our very own survival, right? If you're drinking yourself to death, you're overdosing on drugs, we're putting ourselves in all these scenarios that's not from our genes. They're from what he called a meme or a mind virus. World is filled with mind viruses today now, of course, because of the internet, media, and social media. So what are the memes going around the world? Money is bad, rich people are evil, it's spiritual or noble to be poor. And then for all of our entrepreneur friends listening in, what are we taught? Well, to be a successful business person, you got to be a terrible parent. And to run a successful company, you got to exploit the workers and pillage the environment and rip off the shareholders. These are just evil, insidious mind viruses. And as an entrepreneur, you're probably infected with them on a subconscious level. You don't even know they're there. And so what happens is you create this self-identity, this limiting ceiling that you can't break through, and you self-sabotage, and you don't even know you're doing it.
So one of the things that I have come to realize, and working with a lot of people from a lot of different positions in life, we'll say, is that as I got exposed to more people who had become successful, have run a business, opened something, owned chains of locations, that people who have done well generally didn't do well because they embody those habits and behaviors that you spoke of. A lot of that is broadcast to us through media, through television, through movies, or whatever. But most of the time, very successful people, they're not only kind people, generous people, willing to help you people, the kind of people who, if you reach out to, they'll respond to you, they'll pick up the phone, they'll answer an email. They didn't get to where they are by alienating themselves and being a jerk to everyone along the way. Most of the time. Now, not to say that there aren't people that way, but it's not nearly the representation that is often communicated in popular media. For the most part, successful people are successful primarily because they know how to build relationships and build businesses.
Ben, you got to read this new book. I have a whole chapter on the example of like movies and TV shows and the subliminal programming. Like right now, if we took The Good Doctor, Chicago Med, Scrub, pick any hospital show, I don't care which are, of any genre, any hospital show of any generation, every other season, there will be a plot line when a wealthy person or a wealthy company buys the hospital and they don't want to treat the sick people because the poor people, they don't want to treat the poor, sick people. They just want to do the expensive plastic surgery operations and stuff like that. It is a trope. It's in every medical show.
Oh, yeah.
And take what are the hits of today? Succession. How do we portray wealthy people in Succession? How do we portray wealthy people in Billions? How do we portray wealthy people in House of the Dragon? Pick any blockbuster show, any blockbuster movie. I've got a chapter on that to show you how these tired old memes just keep getting recycled, and it's always the same. The evil, green, greedy, mean corporate. What is the whole premise of Aliens, Alien 3? There's an Alien TV show on CW Network or Hulu or somewhere now. which is very good, by the way, if you're a sci-fi fan like me. But now, like the whole premise of the Alien series is the greedy company that
Yep.
just wants profit. So it brings back these monsters that kill people, but they don't care because they're trying to make money. Same as premise of Avatar, destroying, pillaging the planet. But like the new TV show, they're trillionaires now. It's not enough to be billionaires. So the premise of the new Alien Earth, it's called, TV show is there's 5 trillionaires who now run the world. There's no governments anymore. It's just these evil, greedy trillionaires who are fighting for more profit from each other. And that's the basis of the show. And this is the programming we're all getting. So we think, God, I've got this company and I'm trying to do right by my employees and I'm trying to do good things at the same time. And I want to employ people and contribute to the economy and take care of my family and provide value to my customers. But you have this insidious programming that you don't even know is there that tells you you are a villain and you better stop it and self-sabotage before it's too late.
Yeah, it really is a very messed up message that that we send about that, and it's not a sustainable message. There is no business that is sustainable without people, without a product, without something that people enjoy. I mean, what gets left out of that narrative is that the only reason a guy like Elon Musk, who he didn't come from prosperity. Even a guy like Steve Jobs, most people who are in a position in life, most millionaires, billionaires didn't start out that way. They developed a product. They're obsessed about the things that they create and the things they want to do. And they don't allow many people to deter them from those things that they want. When Elon Musk said, we're going to make an electric vehicle, the entire industry laughed at him and said, yeah, we've done that. It's not going to work. You'll never sell one. This company will be dead. And he brought a different perspective to it. He brought a different reality to it. And, even going to space, he kind of looked at the spacesuit and he said, we can make it look cooler than that. It's like everything he does.
Like with space, he questioned the premise because the whole reason why space didn't work is because they'd use a rocket and throw it away. So they might spend $250 million on a rocket, take it somewhere, and then it goes in the garbage. And he just said, well, hey, could we create a reusable rocket? He questioned the premise, went back to first principles, and you know what? Turns out we can reuse rockets.
Yeah, I loved, I heard an interview with him where he said, imagine, we're going to take a plane across country and we build a brand new plane, and just before we get there, we just jump out and we parachute down and we let the plane, disintegrate. We can never use it again.
Right. That was how, and I've heard him tell that analogy. And I think it's one of the most profound ones because it seems so obvious and silly when you think about it. Well, I got that flight from Delta from Atlanta to LA. They're not going to throw the plane away when we get to LA. They're going to use it to fly back. Yet that's exactly the thinking that the rockets aerospace companies had. Yeah, we're going to ride it to Mars or the moon or wherever, and then we're going to throw it away.
One of the things that I often will discuss with students of mine is the challenge, I think, that happens in business is that business is a very extrinsically rewarding thing, meaning that the only reason a business continues to sustain itself is because it needs revenue and profitability for its runway to keep going. Internally, though, it has no internal desires. Like internally, for us as people, we strive to be enlightened. We strive to improve ourselves. We strive for kind of internal satisfaction. And where I think people struggle is that they want somehow businesses to give you some internal renewable energy, I guess, something that will create sustainability internally for you. But that's just not what they're designed to do. And I think sometimes what we have to understand is just what we are dealing with, right? A business is not ever going to internally fulfill you. It's more going to enhance your extrinsic values, your wealth, the things you have. And those things that I think ultimately lead to being in a better lot in life, having more opportunity to not worry about things. All of that helps. But the business itself is not going to be that internal thing.
I would have a little contrarian take on that,
Yeah.
which is more recently, the last 5 years or so. Simon Sinek had a book called The Infinite Game. And I bought it when it came out, but I didn't read it right away. Because I'm like, okay, I read Leaders Eat Last or whatever that one is called, and know your why. And I'm like, okay, so it's a simple concept. I get, all right, infinite game. I'm sure it's just about play the long game, not the short game. So I never really made time to read the book for a few years when it came out. But I was hearing from people I respect, like, this book is really profound. Wow. So I go and I read it. And he's the first author I've seen that had the balls to challenge this conventional. I don't remember what's the name of the economist who said it, but
Milton Friedman.
The only purpose of a corporation is make money for the shareholders, right? That's gospel of every business program on the universe that I know of. So Sinek comes along and says, nah, I'm calling BS on that. I think a company can do good. And that could be their reason for existence. And if they do good in enough quantity, the money thing is there. It will be profitable. But the order is important. You don't say we make money by doing good. You could say we do good, and therefore we make money. I guess I was old enough at that point in my life and rich enough, if we're being honest, to say, I could do that. I could test that theory. So what's my mission? My mission is I want to make the world more prosperous. I don't think you can do that with entitlement programs. I don't think you can do it with charity, even though I support charities in a huge, huge way, right? I'm a philanthropist. But I see that as the bandage, not the cure. So I said, that's what I'm going to dedicate my company to. My company is called Prosperity Factory Incorporated, right? So I've had this prosperity type of consciousness for a long, long time. But I always looked at the monetary model first. Okay, have I developed this product or service? What's it going to sell for? What's the cost? What's my profit margin going to be? How many do I think I can sell? Well, after Simon's book, I just said, I'm going to, every book, every blog post, every YouTube video, whatever consulting doing, the coaching I'm doing, I'm just going to skew everything to make the world more prosperous and trust that if I do that, the money thing will, yes, still continue to take care of itself. And that's what happened for me. Like 2025, so I just turned 67 a couple of weeks ago. So, and I don't know, I bought into the story of society tells us that a man of my age, the horizon in front of me is closer than the horizon behind me. And probably I should be winding down things a little and, which is a nice way to say, who's going to keep hiring an old war horse, run down, broken down war horse like me. And 2025 was the best year of my entire career. My revenue was higher than it's ever been. My income, my investments were more profitable than they ever been. My relationship was incredible. Family, health, my health markers. I literally got a year and a half younger chronologically with my health. And I can tell you, I'm already going to beat all of that in 26, what I did in 2025, meaning scaling at multiple levels. And that's been the way it's been since I adopted that philosophy of, hey, I'm just going to dedicate my business to raising the prosperity consciousness of everybody I come in contact with. So I've just had a pretty cool experience with that I wanted to share.
I appreciate that. Let's see if I find the words here. Having learned that same thing about businesses and making money for the shareholders, because that's primarily my business growing up, right? My exposure to business growing up was, a CEO is tasked with making money for the shareholders, and they're punished when they don't. So they need to create operational efficiency. They need to create revenue. If they don't, they're out because that's not what the shareholders want. And when they make moves in benefit of the employees that cost more money for the business than it should, that becomes an issue for them as well. And so what is kind of more clear to me now is that even though public companies do help people create wealth, they also kind of set things up so that it makes it challenging to really give back in big ways that we would want to individually. And which is why one of the things that I've really come to love are small businesses and entrepreneurs, because they have more ability to do that than do big companies. Because, big companies are great for learning about being efficient, creating streamlined operations, delivering good service, like understanding good systems and resources. I love what you said. As a matter of fact, even this thing that I started 3 years ago, Dist Media, we haven't made a dime. So much of our content we give away for free. We try to build information and insight to help people get better at stuff. And my whole philosophy about this is that the things I do outside of this are what sustain me, and I'm doing okay, that I don't really put pressure on myself to turn a buck doing this. Right. And so, and by the way, that's what makes it fun and engaging. And I think what is really, and in some ways helping us grow.
Yeah. So a few thoughts I get on that. Trigger some stuff you said, trigger some interesting thoughts. One, there's a huge difference between public companies and private companies. And I think you're speaking to that with what you just said. I think Bezos was the example of how to do the public company in a way that could work. If somebody who said, I need an MBA in business and I need it in 48 hours, how do I do that? I'd say, well, you have two choices. Number one, you could read all of Bezos's shareholder letters from the first to the time he was CEO, or you could read the new book called The Book of Elon from Eric Jorgensen. Either one, you got an MBA in business, how to run and found and create a business in 3 hours worth of reading. And if you read those shareholder letters from Bezos, they're fascinating when you read them straight through from the first to the end. Because he'll say, we have this crazy idea. We're thinking calling it Prime. We're going to charge $99 for it. And we're going to probably lose a lot of money up front, but we think it's best in the long haul. And then you read the next year and he's like, well, the the Prime cost us like $300 million in extra shipping, but it brought us 7 million new customers that are, and it seems to be, and then the third year is like, wow, Prime is like paying for itself. And the fourth year, wow, we added music to Prime, and we added movies to Prime. And you see, he made AWS, and they made the mistakes, the Fire TV, the Fire phone, whatever it was. But he's just totally upfront about it. Hey, it was something, we tried it, didn't work. Okay, we're we're pivoting. But he was telling those people all along, the shareholders, stick with us. No, we're going to lose money for a while, but ultimately, this is a good decision. And of course, he's proved that. To me, he's the number one entrepreneur in the world. There's no one who could touch what he did with Amazon, starting off with 2 file cabinets and a door stacked on top for his desk, right?
Drop shipping books and music.
Yeah. So I think it could be done in public companies. It's a lot harder. I have to say, like, I'm working with 2 different companies right now, both private. These are companies do a couple $100 million. They're not multi-billion because they're younger, they're newer, but a couple $100 million, that's, you're doing something if you're doing a couple $100 million. And both of them, we have integrated their foundation, their charitable work, into the business plan in a way that I think is amazing. And I can't talk more on it now because in both cases it's early in the development and I need to respect their privacy, right? That they don't want everything out there in the world at this stage of the game. But they're doing this principle of, we're going to do the right thing, and we think it could be profitable, and we think we can grow the company, and we think we can take care of the employees. So I would just encourage anyone listening to the pod to be open to that possible. And you, by the way, that's going to be your homework to say, you know what? I can take this podcast and make it wildly lucrative and profitable and still love it. I don't have to sell my soul to do it. I don't have to do evil things to do it.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Puppies. We would love to make money.
Okay. Well, because I just, this is what the mental side of my book, right? I didn't like you affirming to yourself, like, I've got to give away everything for free, but that's why I like the business, because I'm doing it for the greater good. And I want to just challenge you, because that's my job. They call me the entrepreneur whisperer, right? I'm appointing myself your coach for the moment.
For the time being.
Yeah.
Well, Randy, I will say one of the things that that's kind of part of our strategy. And so just so you know, because this is probably your first exposure to this show. So we've started this business very open, meaning that we're chronicling everything that we do and giving people the opportunity to kind of hear in podcasts,
cool.
What we're doing, right? So where we're at right now, and I explained to you before we got started, like our goal is to hit 100,000 subs on YouTube by the end of 2026. Our goal is to create value for the people who engage with this show. And what I mean by that is that when I have guests like you on, I want to be able to give you exposure to an audience and tap into an audience that may have never heard of Randy before, right? And so one of the reasons I'm focusing on YouTube is global platform, number one streaming platform in the world, people constantly looking for, new and fresh ideas and content on that platform. And so we're trying to deliver that. And while we do that, as our audience grows, we can then pick up affiliate sponsors. We can pick up one of our strategies is we will always give guests the opportunity to be on the show for free. However, if you want us to promote it, meaning that, I do some marketing of each episode, but I'm also cultivating a very targeted audience of people that when you have something to promote, we can put dollars against that, and we'll put out clips, and those clips go on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, Threads, and TikTok. So we're kind of building multiple distribution across social media.
Good.
As a means of giving people a platform. And like I said, we can always do it for free, but when a guest comes on, we've had a few already, they'll basically buy a position, they'll buy a release date, they push everybody else down, and then we throw in some extra assets for marketing their content. So that's that is
I'm very glad to hear that, because I think I'm happy to hear you're seeing, we can do the business model of really serve the community and be profitable at the same time.
Yeah. And so, kind of like Bezos right now. And I love Amazon's story because they didn't make money for so long. But what people saw in them was the potential of what it has become and what it is still evolving into as it continues to mature. And that AI, the new frontier, right? That everybody is investing a ton of money in. The downside of that investment, as we're seeing in the market, is that we have a lot of companies making room to invest in AI, which means that like Meta's laying off 10% of their workforce, Google's laying off people, Amazon's laying off people because they're investing in AI infrastructure. And we're in a challenging time right now. And for the people who are affected by that, it's tough. Like, especially when you've built your career and your family and your expectations around that thing. But I have every belief in the world that those folks are going to reinvest in themselves. And it may not feel like it right now, but I think there's a better future for them beyond what is happening right now. And it doesn't feel like it right now, but sometimes these things happen for good reasons.
Yeah, I'm with you. Somebody asked me on a show the other day, are the robots going to kill us? Is AI the end of the thing? And I said, my honest opinion, there's a 10 to 20% possibility that comes true. I think it's closer to 10% than 20%, but it might be as high as 20%. But that means there's an 80 to 90% chance that humanity is going to be enriched immeasurably, and we will make the whole planet more prosperous. And I'll take those odds any day of the week. 80, 90% chance of success like that. And I've harnessed AI a lot in my business, and I'm continuing to. I literally was just on the phone with my IT guy about 2 hours ago, talking about the next upgrade I want to do to the agents and the things that I've got running here. And it's growing the company and growing my business. And it means I'm actually hiring more people, which was not on my bingo card originally. I had a huge staff for doing what I do, being an author and a speaker. I had 14, 15 employees and sold that business a while back and said, which had the CDs and the books and the info products and all that. And I sold all that. And I just kept my main executive assistant and said, I just want to be able to travel the world, work from under a palm tree, anywhere in the world with my laptop. And then she retired when she got like 72 or 73 or something. And I said, okay, I'm never going to have another employee. I'm just going to use virtual assistants and, vendors and things like that. And this business kept growing and growing. And I'm like, you know what? I need to hire another executive assistant full-time here in Miami just to allow me to concentrate on my genius stuff. That my genius that I should be doing. If you ever read the book Who, Not How from Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy, really putting that into place. And then I started hooked up some AI agents, and that gave me some more free time, and then it gave me more productivity. Because I feel like when we're using AI right, like what I'm doing, I feel like AI has taken over at this point probably 12 or 15 hours a week of stuff I used to do personally. It's now free. And then it's given me like 20 hours a week of magic sauce, meaning giving me stuff that I wouldn't even have thought of without AI. Like I have a part of my coaching program, I have a newsletter goes out every Monday, call it Monday Mojo, kind of get people framed up for the week, what they want to do, get their thinking right, give them a plan of action. So I finished like number 12 of the 12 weeks, and my AI agent says to me, do you realize this structure you've done, this process that you've taken people through on the 12 weeks? And you do realize this would be a natural framework for an incredible book. I'm like, you know what? You're right. And great. Okay. Would you like me to give you like a table of contents so you could see what it might look like? Yeah. So that's what I call magic sauce. It's stuff like that I wouldn't even have thought of if I didn't have those. Like one of them I created to be my brain, my co-CEO, and to give me those kind of ideas. So I'm saving 12, 13, 15 hours a week that it frees me up either for just quality of life stuff outside of work or more time in my genius zone. And then I'm getting this 20 hours a week of magic sauce. And so now I was telling my guys the other day, I think that by the end of the year, I probably need to hire 3 more people and 10 more AI agents. So the 10 AI agents will work for free and $20 a month and no meals and no vacation time and no sick pay and none of that. But I'm actually going to be hiring more humans to help facilitate the increase in business that the AI is helping me produce.
Yeah. Ray, I tell you time and time again, as I do these interviews and talk with business leaders and entrepreneurs, this is the story that I continue to hear about people leaning into AI. While, kind of as we started this conversation, we were talking about how media sends the wrong message about business. And media continues to send the wrong message, I think, about AI. And not to say that some of the things they mention aren't worth considering, because I think they are.
Yeah.
But at the same time, AI is an augmentation. It is not a replacement. It is a tool that gives us more ability, more efficiency, more throughput. It is, if you're in business, if you run a business, you're always striving for efficiency. I was listening to a podcast recently. They were talking about when the printing press first came out and how initially what it did was, because people could create newspapers so much more quickly with typesetting and things like that, that initially it put people out of work. But then because of the volume of content that ended up getting created, they realized all these people we let go, we have to bring back, because now we're able to, back in the day, the newspaper was 3 or 4 pages because it's all you could put out. And then we went from that to 20, sections, sports section, business, politics, like all of these different areas. And now content is just immeasurable. I mean, it's just trillions of pages a day, it seems. So yes, AI is evolving us into doing things differently. I think there's going to be some recession, but then I think there's going to be a big push ahead for all this new stuff that comes out, because people are going to be more creative and they're going to have more abilities and capabilities to do stuff that you used to have to wait on people to do. And now you've got these tools to help you.
For sure. It will be, I agree with you in the sense, I think there's going to be a serious downside. I think there's going to be 2 billion plus. It could even be 3 billion jobs that are disrupted by AI and the related, like AI driven robotics and related things like that. And there will be 6-figure income people who lose jobs. There will be 7-figure income people who lose jobs, right? Yeah. So it's not going to be pretty along the way, but there will be some downs in the ups. But ultimately, again, like, I'm so old, to give people an idea how old I am. My sister-in-law, when I met her, her job was, she was a typesetter at a printer. So she took, like, if I took that sign behind you, she'd put, if you wanted to make that into a poster, she would use a, 88 font DM, the big one, and then the, 28 font startup, and then story 20 font. She laid those in blocks, then went on a cylinder, and it created a roll that, of course that job got disrupted by technology. Of course that job will never come back. But of course she's got other jobs. That's, so I became a professional speaker in 1991. Back then we had this thing, some of your people have to Google this, but we had this technology. It was called cassette tapes. So I was making cassette tape albums, right? And 6-tape album, 8-tape albums, selling them for $47 or $77 or $97. And not all, but most of my contemporaries in the National Speakers Association were like, "You're crazy. If they buy your tape album, they're never going to hire you as a speaker. They'll never go to your seminar." And I kept producing those albums, and the cassette tapes turned into CDs, and the CDs turned into DVDs. And that turned into a business that did $125,000 a month in album sales. And that turned into me being in the Speaker Hall of Fame, earning millions and millions of dollars as a speaker. And now I can go to, I've spoken to more than 2 million people across more than 50 countries. So I can go to Asia and Kazakhstan and Germany and sell out opera houses, even though they all had those albums that people said they would never want to see me speak live. It's the exact opposite. If they've read your book, if they've watched or listened to your audio or video, when you come to town, they want to see you. Just like they said records were going to kill concerts, right? People believed that at one time. This is the same with AI. Right?
Who knew it would be Ticketmaster?
Right? I mean, it's just, you're not going to put the genie back in the bottle or the milk back in the spilled carton or the whatever cliche you want to use. We can't go backward in time. That's not going to save us. We have to adapt, and modify.
Randy, let me ask you this, because back in my younger days, loved music, worked with some friends who did recordings and bands and stuff like that. And one of the things that was always pricey was putting out a single, putting out a tape, things like that. When you had to make that decision of putting out those first 6 or 8 tapes that you put out, was there a little bit of like, oh gosh, that's a lot of money to spend?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that, my first album, 6 cassette tapes, went on to sell more than 1 million albums.
Wow.
Right? And I had no way of knowing that. I had no clue that was going to happen. But that's what happened with that very first album, because nobody was doing it for just that reason. Like, oh, that studio time. And, the editing was done. He had the tape in the studio and he would advance it, and he took a razor blade and he'd cut the tape.
There was no Pro Tools back then.
Right. He would fast forward it to the sound of where it ended, where I coughed. And then he would take the razor blade and he would cut out the cough, and then he would tape those two pieces together. That's how he did it, right? So this was expensive. And then you had the packaging and the shipping and all of that stuff. But I was like, if I don't invest in me, then nobody should invest in me. And for every entrepreneur, you have to be the number one investor in your dream.
That man, that is 100% true. I always tell people, like, you're the best investment you're ever gonna make. So don't hold back on it. Randy, I know I promised we wouldn't go too long here, even though I feel like I could do another 20 minutes easy. First off, I want to make sure that people know where to get a hold of you, and if you wouldn't mind, how do people find you? Where do they get in touch?
All right. So my Starfleet command site is randygage.com. And that's really, my podcast is there. My blog is there. My entrepreneur coaching program is there. The book's best bet is Amazon. The new book, which is a must read for entrepreneurs and anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur or wants to see how the money game is really played. That book is called Wealth Without Apology. And a couple other books that'd be really good for entrepreneurs. I wrote a book called Risky is the New Safe, and another one called Mad Genius. So those kind of really speak strongly to entrepreneurs.
And if you wouldn't mind, what is one thing from your new book that you think really is the thing that is the hook, we'll say, for the book?
I'm going to teach you how to build health, happiness, and wealth without feeling guilty about it, without allowing society to run rackets on you about it, and by you finding the limiting beliefs that are probably causing you to sabotage your success, your health, your happiness, your income. And I'm going to show you how to view prosperity holistically, because money and material things are part of that, but it's not the be all end all. I believe there's 4 quadrants of a prosperous life, and I explain that in the book. And at the end of the day, you will know how to create a prosperity flywheel, put your money to work for you, income producing assets, income producing business ventures, right? Because I believe, and by the end of the book, you will believe that, hey, every morning I want to wake up wealthier than I was when I went to sleep the night before. That's the way it should work. And that's what people will get out of the book.
Love it. Love it. Randy, I usually ask this question as well. So I'm going to ask you, although with your book having just come out, maybe it might be something related to that. But what is the one thing that you're really excited about getting up and doing the work that you do?
I know that consciousness changes one person at a time. And when you ignite that in someone, it becomes a meme. And memes parasitize the host and cause you to replicate the virus, right? Just do it is a meme. You see a Nike commercial of you just do it. And then you buy the sweatshirt, just do it, right? You propagate the meme. Where's the beef? That's a meme. You got a catchy song on the radio. It's got an earworm. You're in an elevator. You're humming it. You're going to infect the other people in the elevator. Now they got that song in their mind, you know? That's what I want to do with the new book, with this. I want to change the conversation on prosperity. I want to get rid of the guilt, get rid of the rackets, identify the self-sabotage programming, identify the self-sabotage limiting beliefs, and just, I'm going to deputize every reader who reads that book. I'm going to deputize them to take that prosperity message out in the world, because you were meant to be healthy, happy, and prosperous.
Love it. Love it. Of all the isms, I still love the capital one the best. So, Randy, thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom. I'll definitely make sure that we put not only a link to your website, but a link to your book as well in the notes so that people can quickly find that. For all of you guys checking out Disc Media, A Startup Story, thank you guys for tuning in. As mentioned, we're on the warpath of getting to 100,000 subs by the end of 2026. By the taping of this episode, we have just crossed 27,000. We're knocking on the door of 28,000. And man, thank you all for sharing. And like I say, share it with your mom, share it with your friends, but more importantly, share it with your enemies, because those are the people who take actions on your words. If you guys also would be so kind, feel free to check out my book as well. 10 topics to help managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs get better at what you do, which you can find at my website, benalmost.com. All right, gang, thank you all for checking this out. We'll catch you next time. Have a good one. Thanks for listening to Disc Media, A Startup Story. This podcast was produced and edited by Ben Olmos and is a production of Disc Media Corporation. If you're interested in learning more about anything you heard on this episode, please reach out to us at podcast@discmedia.com. You can also get more information about this and other episodes, or information about our guests, by checking out dailypitch.news, our business and insights publication focused on helping managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs get better at what they do.